Hey everybody, my name is Maria Brophy, and I'm going to talk about how you can get your first art licensing deal or your next art licensing deal. And this is really geared for artists who are new to getting their art printed on other companies' products. And that's what art licensing is. It's basically you're an artist, you create cool art, another company makes cool products, and they pay you to put your art on their products. And what I love about this licensing model is that by teaming up with another company, you're actually promoting your work because they're promoting your work and you're getting paid for it. And it's also just a fun thing to do to see your art on really cool stuff. So, but how do you get that first deal if you're new to this? So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And if you're on live with me, please ask questions. And if you're watching the replay, ask questions in the comments. I do answer them because I love you all and I care. And my job on this earth is to make artists' lives easier by sharing the stuff that I have kind of figured out over the last 20 years when it comes to the art business. Okay, so if you are new to licensing, or even if you've done a few licensing deals, the way to get your next deal, you can start small. And that's what I always like to tell people. Don't go for the big, giant thing right away, right? Get a little experience under your belt. And by experience, I mean, learn how to do deals with people. That is actually something you learn by doing. You never learn it. I'm sure you'll learn some tips from me, or if you read a book or my book, or you watch videos. But the best lessons come from doing it yourself. So I want you to start small with small companies, local opportunities, friends, companies, because that will give you the confidence to move ahead and go bigger and bigger and bigger over time. And also, smaller deals tend to be easier to get. It's easier to reach somebody at a small company. And heck, if it's somebody you know, it's way easier, right? It's super easy. I'd like to say hi to Lara. Hi, Lara. Thanks for being here. And thank you for the compliment on my necklace. This is a Flower of Life necklace. I love anything with Flower of Life on there. Okay, so how do you get your first art licensing deal? Start small, but before you start that process, before I get into that, first I want you to think about, what do you want? So this is what you really need to know, right? Some artists never want to see their art on lower priced products. Other artists would love to see their art on like candles in Walmart and mass market stores, right? So you first have to know what you want. If you're a fine artist and you only want your art printed on top quality products, then that's good to know. You're not going to approach companies that make cheap products, right? It's kind of a no-brainer, but this is really important to think about. If you are a lifestyle artist, so I personally know a lot of artists that create really poppy, kind of edgy art that appeals to youth people, younger people who like to skateboard and do a lot of action sports, right? So if you're that kind of artist, you would probably like to see your art on lifestyle clothing, hats, stickers, maybe even skateboards. So where would you start? So think about what it is that you want for your art now and the future. Because if you're like a fine artist, you might only want your art on luxury items if the buyers of your fine art are in that target market. So think about that. And then we can go to the next step. Once you know what you want for your art now and the future, then the next step is starting with the low-hanging fruit, the easy deals to get. So I'll use an example of the artist that does like edgy lifestyle, action sports type art. Like my husband Drew, and there's a ton of other artists out there doing stuff like that. The low-hanging fruit would be small local skateboard companies. They all need art on their decks because skateboards always have art on them. Go to a company that's new, or that is smaller, that's easier to get in touch with, easier to reach. That's one example. Another example would be a startup clothing company. So if your art is done in a particular theme, lifestyle, like let's say you are an artist that loves to create vegetable art, and there's a lot of you out there, you would go to companies that maybe have clothing lines for that are geared towards vegans or vegetarians. And there's a lot of companies like that out there, or that produce products that are marketed to vegans and vegetarians, like certain types of herbal teas or food products or cosmetics, right? So this is where you really start to brainstorm. If you live in a community where there's a good number of people, like, 10,000 or more, I'm willing to bet there is a small company in your community that could use your art on either their products or their promotional items. So let's say it's a real estate agent. Every town has real estate businesses. I live in somewhat of a small town. It's California, so it's small for California standards, big, compared to the country. But it still is a small town. We have dozens of real estate companies here. And you know what they like to do? They like to give gifts to their clients. And some of them print t-shirts, or they print beautiful artworks to give away as a gift. So really think outside the box. Okay? Think of things that nobody really tells you to go after. Okay, so here's a question from Lara. I feel like my art is all over the place. I paint spiritual type art, but also dragons and fantasy themes. Who would I reach out to? Well, right off the bat, spiritual type art. Easy. I mean, there are so many companies out there, big and little. Think yoga studios, right? There are yoga studios everywhere. Holistic health centers. What could your art be used for? Well, your art could be used for their t-shirts, their coffee mugs, maybe their promotional items that they give away, or items that they sell in their gift store, where you could, now this next thing I'm going to tell you will open everything wide up for you. If you are not going to be particular about this, one way that you can get a company to get really excited about it is if you do a co-branding. So you do spiritual art. Let's say you like to do artwork that shows the chakras, or even people in yoga poses, or archangels, or whatever. You could take that piece of art and co-brand it with a yoga studio, or with a wellness center, or with a clothing company. So your art, your name, and their logo. And I'll tell you, we've done this with a lot of companies, and it's a win-win for everybody. It's a win-win. If their logo's on it, they're going to push it even more. They're going to they're going to care about it even more. So that's how really we call that co-branding. They still pay you. They're producing the products. They're using your art and they're putting their logo on it. So that's just one example. And take that example that I just gave and apply it to any kind of art, okay? So now that you might have an idea of who you can approach, how do you approach them? That is a whole nother topic. I'll give you a little nugget here, but what I want to say is if you really want to do this, I am teaching 3 art licensing courses where the first one is an introduction. The second one teaches you how to prepare your portfolio and get your next deal. And then the third one goes deep into contracts and agreements. But I do want you to sign up for the first one because each one builds on the last, and you can sign up for it for my next class by hitting the link in the description of this video. And Amanda Weedmark, thank you. I'm so glad you're going to be on in my first class. And the classes are taught live, but if you can't go live, it doesn't matter because the replay, the courses will always be available. So after the live class is over, you can still sign up and get the replay. I like to do live classes because I love getting questions. And I think for Art Licensing 101 class, I have about 80 people signed up. Probably 50 will show up for the live class, and the questions are where just all the magic happens. Lara said, great ideas. Thank you. I did buy your book a while ago. I need to go read it again. Thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. And I'm glad you bought my book. And she's talking about my Art Money Success book, where I only talk about licensing just a tiny bit in that book, because really licensing is a book in and of itself. There's a lot to know. And I always tell people the best way to learn about licensing, besides watching videos and taking classes, is just by doing it. And some of you are already doing it and you don't even realize it. And I'll tell you how that is. Like if somebody sees your art, and Amanda Weedmark, you might be one of these people, because you do some really awesome art that would work great on stickers and t-shirts and all sorts of things. If somebody commissions you for an image, a design for their t-shirt or their sticker, as long as you don't sell them all rights to that, and I don't recommend that you do, you're actually licensing it to them, letting them use it for whatever they want to use it for. And it's a terrific business model. And I go into detail on that in my Art Licensing 101 and in other videos that I've done. So that's all for today. I hope you got something out of this, and thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. And remember, ask questions in the comments after this video live stream ends, because I really thrive on your questions. Thanks a lot.